the
Hmm.
DB schemas or all those things. So the idea is that testing should be done as early as possible so that you can find bugs as early as possible, because finding bugs early will make them easy to fix and will cost also less. And if you are finding the bugs close to production or all the on the production, then your
Mhm.
customers will find them.
so that they can reduce the feedback time, right? Feedback time is basically as soon as the developers are done with their deployment and
Mhm.
how soon we can give feedback from the testing to them. Okay, these are have error, or maybe these are something wrong. These are the bugs that need to be fixed. So reduce that time, feedback time between
Mhm.
the development and testing, right?
So 2 weeks of time now reduced to 3 days,
Just
right?
right, exactly.
So this is shift left, right? This is what testers can do when you involve them in the requirement discussion, when they have
Exactly.
all the business context.
What I think is even the developer is not tend to do their jobs in bad manners.
Right, exactly.
The issue is they don't have that much of clarity with the requirements.
Because already developer work is hard, right? We are also developing our automation frameworks. We know that coding is hard, it takes time, right?
Right.
And now we are saying that, okay, you have to test also, you have to find your bugs and fix them also.
Before, say he published one paper which is shifting out. So there is some shift right in testing and there is some shift left in testing. So shift left we
Right.
already discussed, and shift right
Right.
is the monitoring part that we
Mhm.
do whether in
Exactly.
monitoring. So monitoring is more like finding the bugs before customer can identify them, right? So suppose
Mhm.
something goes wrong in the production, we are notified about that as early as possible before it can impact our customer.
Welcome to Tech Unfiltered with Manish. Today we have Yogendra and Raneesh with us, and today's topic is shift left testing. So before starting it, I want to have a introduction from Raneesh and Yogendra. Raneesh, over to you. Can you introduce yourself to our public?
Sure, definitely. And thanks, Manish, for introducing me to your podcast and inviting me here for this wonderful topic. Okay, so hi everyone. I am Raneesh. I have around 8 years of experience in the testing industry. Currently, I'm working as lead QE at Adobe. I've been riding the automation wave when it started around 7 to 8 years ago. I started with writing the test cases, understanding requirements, then automating certain things, and then API came into the picture, and this all revolution, and now AI is picking up. So yeah, just had ridden the automation wave and just looking out for new things in testing space, and yeah, just continuing with the this exciting career of testing.
That's great, Raneesh. Now, Yogendra, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Manish, so thank you for having me here on discussing shift left testing. So I'm Yogendra, currently working as test architect at Binmile Technologies. Manish and I was colleague there around 2 years ago, I think. Um, I started my career, I think, in 2014. It's been more than 10 years now in working in testing field itself. I have worked in almost all the verticals of testing: performance, security, functional, test automation, even unit testing as well for developers, right? And CI/CD integration, everything. Yeah, mostly process improvement as well, auditing of QA process. So that's it about me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. So I want to go a bit deeper more, like how you started your career, how you end up in like testing. Have you choose it in your college days, or it was like due to some placement? So like how you started your career into the testing. So Ranesh, can you put some light on it?
Sure, definitely. And yeah, by my story, most of us can relate. I've been an accidental tester. I never wanted to be in testing, and just knew about testing because there was a book in our computer science. So just knew about there's a theoretical subject, knew about it, learned about it. But when I got placed, so I got placed in TCS, and I don't know what logic do they decide, and if they roll a dice to decide the streams or whatever things that they think, okay, which person is suitable for which specialization. But for me, they chose that, okay, I'll be put in testing. And frankly, I was not happy. Even I thought my career has started on a very low path where I'll not be able to do much. And as soon as I get chance, I wanted to switch to development. So that is how I was introduced to testing. I never knew what was in testing, what I had to do in testing, what all sorts of technologies I get to work on. So my first project was a bank-based project. So there we had to do some data migration and all those things. So then I got to introduce, okay, how a tester is involved in the whole software development process. What we are doing as a tester, like I was mostly involved with most of the SQL queries or validating the functional flows, understanding the requirements, how the software is getting developed. So then I got to understand that testing also requires your logical concepts, right? It is not a non-technical work, or it is not a type of work which you cannot build a career on. That's what I understood. Okay. And so that was 2 years. So then I did not know about automation. I did not know about other things that can be there in testing, right? And then when I moved to a different company, and that was that time when I got introduced to automation, and I got to know that okay, because I loved programming in my CS degree, right? So I thought this is the place where I can also apply my programming skills along with my testing skills and see okay how both can be leveraged together, right? So then I just experimented with different technologies, understood how CI/CD process work, how software is getting developed, and then all this agile methodologies came and all those things came. It all went into fast-paced mode, and every company started optimizing their processes. Then when I was on the automation wave, and I understood that everyone is getting good packages, and I also got good packages because of that, right? And but now in the recent years, in the recent 2 3 years, now I wanted to move into other aspects of testing. So now I looked into a bit security, I looked into a bit of performance, then on the even basics of testing, right? The exploration processes. How do you model the requirements? So
Right.
and then I followed some of the leaders in testing like James Pack, Michael Bolton, Rahul Verma, Sandeep. They are on the LinkedIn that I follow them regularly, right? So I got introduced into a whole world of testing that I can say this is a whole universe. And then now I'm at a space where I can see that there are many things in testing, but I cannot even invest my time into multiple things because testing is vast.
Right.
So now I'm just choosing some particular things to invest my time on.
Right.
And yeah, like I said, excited to be in this career.
That's great, Raneesh. Like, definitely, I can relate with it. Like, most of us are kind of like accidental testers. Even most of the testers don't know there's a testing stream into the IT world or something like that. They have mostly imagined about how they will do development and be developer and DevOps kind of stuff. And suddenly they are into testing. But now, like when we are exploring the things, they are so much into the testing. Even I can say it's like more major than you can say development field. It have like more coverage than the things which are like spread in different direction. You need to take care about like what are the different services. You need to take care about the performance of you need to take care about the users. There are lot of steps which goes into the testing, but initially none of us, I think, like know about these things and how we started this. So Yogendra, like how you started your career in testing?
So I would not say accidental tester or developer, but the main goal was, so I will go further back, right? When I was in school completing my 12th or higher secondary, right?
Mhm.
So my main goal was to have a job, have 20 to 30 a month, right? And that was it. I don't want to have much thought on that. I want to do engineering, BTech, or maybe BCom, right? My goal was to have some good job, decent paying job, right? Because at that time, like 14 year ago, 20,000 is good amount
Yeah, it
to
was too
have.
much.
It was too much, yeah. So
It is too good.
much of that just right. So when I completed my higher secondary, I consulted with my families because all my father and all of his brothers, right? So they are four brothers and three of them are engineers, right? So my father is engineer. Two of them, their big brothers are also engineer, right? So then I choose to, okay, look, let's go to BTech. My father wanted to have me in BCom, right? So that I can get that PO jobs, right? Clerical jobs. Because 14 years ago, it was on boom, right? There were so many courses going on, so that you can join it and you will have a bank PO job guaranteed.
Right.
And they were paying decently, right? 30 to 40,000, right? So my father wanted me to have that, but I decided no, I will go to an engineering college and complete my BTech. So when I was in BTech, my goal was to be placed in any company, right? TCS, Tech Mahindra, Infosys, right? That was the main goal. I didn't had any goal in mind that I will do programming, some good programming, right? I will write a lot of creative programs. I was good at programming since the beginning, so I was in among the top student which has good skills in Java and C++, right? Even the front end. But I didn't had that kind of goal. So I got placed in Tech Mahindra, right? At that time as well, when we did like 6 months of training, I had something in mind. Okay, I'm good at SQL, so I can be a DBA as well, right? I'm good at maybe Java or Linux, so I can be maybe in DevOps as well. Because at that time, if your Linux is good, you will be assigned to a build team, right, or DevOps team, where you need to like copy paste jar here and there, right, and set up the environment. So I had those two in my mind, but I got assigned to a testing team, right? At that time as well, I didn't had any regret. I said, okay, this is good. No much work. Didn't have to do any programming. You already have test cases. Just execute them and go to your. That's it. So that was it. That's how I got into testing, right? And I was enjoying that. How I got introduced to test automation, that is a different story. So that's something interesting. So we had a project where we just test the promotions. I was working on some telecom project, which is on British Telecom and AT&T, right? A major telecom in US. So they have bi-weekly promotions, right? So same thing need to be tested after every 2 weeks, right? Just the promotions or offers changed, and we need to verify those 15, 20 offers on 4 to 5 applications, right? So I thought like why do this again and again? So I had this senior Saurabh, right? He has this macro in Excel that will create test cases for all of us. He will just put those 15, 20 offers, and it will create all the test plan and test cases for all the application. So I thought, okay, go beyond that, do some test automation around it, right? And automate it all so that we can just parameterize this 15, 20 offer and we run this script and that's it. And we will enjoy our life. So that's how I learned Selenium at that time. I was good at Java. So that's how I got introduced to test automation. After I assigned to, or after I changed my job to the next company, right, after 2.5 years, that's when I got serious in testing. So that's when, because in MNC, the projects are big and you are doing some very regular kind of testing, right? But when I assigned to a good project where we were working from scratch, right, it was some insurance domain project, and it was heavy calculation on monetary, right? Heavy analysis on medical documents, right? So that's how I got serious in testing, like how to analyze those requirements, how to create different test scenario, what edge cases you should not miss, right? And even if in the test automation, what need to be automated, right? If you try to automate everything, you will never be able to cover, right? The motive behind automation will be beaten up because your automation will not be of use to yourself. It will not reduce your regression time, or it will not save your time so that you can enjoy rest of the time, right? So that's how I got serious in testing. So I did test automation and some serious testing around like 4 to 5 years. And then even at that time, I was not more into testing fundamentals. I was observing and learning from my experience, like how testing process should be, how we should go to requirement analysis. Don't just write test cases, do some exploratory testing. So I was learning from my experience mostly. But I think maybe 2 years back, When I got introduced to, I think, James Buck, I started to read some of his blogs. Then I understand what's the fundamental behind this. So everything that those guys discuss, we are already doing it, right? We go to requirement discussions, we understand, we raise question to product. And also when you think of it, right, we mostly write test cases, but at the time of actual testing, we do it exploratory, right? We mostly go and, okay, login may, if we have login test cases, right, valid, invalid is good or everything, but we will go and try to break it. That's
Right.
kind of exploratory testing in itself, right? And if we talk about heuristic, it's kind of stress heuristic strategy. So that's how I got more and more serious around, like, okay, these are the fundamentals, and that's how the process actually should be. So that was it. I think it was quite long that I goes on, but yeah.
So these are some like interesting stories, like how we come up with the testing and how, like, after working 3-4 years, we understand what is testing.
Right.
So this is something very common in the testers I have seen. People are into testing for 3-4 years, and then they starting to understand what testing is, how they can improve their testing, and they can understand like how to leverage the, you can say, automation, how to leverage those tools which are into the market, and how to use them properly rather than just using them. So a lot of people are like, they are just using the tools, they are just using the automation, but they don't know how to leverage it to reduce your efforts, or to have a thing like which will make your productivity higher, rather than just like, if someone, or you can say other companies, other teams are using it, we need to use it. So currently people are in a race. They're not realizing like why they are doing the automation, why they have Selenium, why they have like performance testing. It just fit into their, you can say, set of tools, because other companies and other people are using it, so that's why they have to use it.
And even
Definitely.
I would like to add one thing. Even the role of a tester is very different in different companies. If you
Right.
ask five testers in five different companies, they'll be doing n number of things. And
Right.
it can be that maybe some of them have some things in common, but not all of them will be doing the same things. Even the roles and responsibilities differ very much.
Exactly. Exactly.
This is not a problem with just testing, right? It's a problem with the whole engineering stream, right? Be it
Right.
developer, tester, right? Even if we talk about front end developer or back end developer, right? As soon as Angular came in, right? They don't even know what is the advantage of Angular. They just started to build everything in Angular, right? Even though it's
Exactly.
just a 3 to 4 page site, they wanted to build in Angular. As soon as React came in, Vue.js came in, right? They want to switch from Angular to Vue.js or React, right? So I have been working with multiple clients, right? So not just testing, I observe front end revamp as well, right? So they, from legacy Perl pages, they go to Angular, right? And after 1 year from Angular, they go to React without even
Right.
thinking of like why we are doing it, right? They just want to do it because it's in trend and cool. Same goes for testing, right? So
Right.
we just think like, okay, we have did something in Selenium, suddenly Cypress came in, right? We don't know like why the Cypress is important, why its advantages, right? It's mostly for component testing and developer centered tool, right?
Right.
But we want to go for Cypress because we say, okay, it's trending, it's very fast from Selenium, right? uh, even if it is not catering to cross browser support at that time, people still say, okay, we don't want to have Firefox support, we will just do with Chrome, right? And let's implement Cypress. And same is going on with Playwright as well at this time.
Right.
So it's all, I mean, it's for every engineer, not just for testers, right? Even in testing as well, there is a race or trend around having those AI generated test cases, right? Having AI generated Playwright, Selenium code, those kind of tools. So you will see there is a like maybe 10, 20 new tools coming in every 2, 3 months, right? That can generate your code, that claims that your testing will be 100x faster if you use this tool, right? I'm not sure, but yeah, that's how it is. So that's with everyone, right? As soon as some trends came in, people want to go there.
Right. Right. So that's the point. People are not analyzing the process, what
Yes.
they want to make fast. So suppose they got a tool which make some part of their testing 100x faster. they need to analyze that whether that part is already time consuming or not. If they are spending a lot of time at that part, it's better to like automate those stuff, or better to take that tool to make it faster. But in their current setup, if that is the part is the least time taking thing, they don't need that tool. Even if it is like trending, even if it is like into the market and claiming a lot of things, but if it doesn't fit in your ecosystem, there's no need for that.
Yeah,
Exactly. And
definitely.
yeah, I would like to add, so that is the
Mhm.
part where test leadership or test managers come into the picture, right? They have seen the trends, they have seen how companies can fool you into buying
Mhm.
their product, right?
Right.
That is where test managers, test leadership come into the picture and say that, okay, this is how we are going to do, we are going to take a
Mhm.
decision and we'll be following this. But surprisingly and sadly, what I've seen happening is that test leadership is getting reduced day by day in
Right.
multiple companies. And yeah, it's a sad state of affairs where testing leadership will be affected, and it is generally assumed that dev managers can also handle the testing missions or testing strategies.
Mhm. Right.
I really found a dev manager who cares and understands testing as well as the test managers and test leaders and
Right.
can drive their objectives. But yeah, there are people out there because I've worked for a company. My previous company was OLX, and there was a good
Mhm.
manager. I'll also name him Aditya Bhargav. So he was very concerned about testing philosophies and how we are doing our testing. Although we had a test manager there, but he was also involved in this discussion. Okay, how can we bring testing early into the picture so that we can find bugs earlier? So so this kind of managers also are needed to support this testing and to to find a way in all this chaos that is happening.
Right. I have also seen that your top leadership or the manager or some the people, the developer person is considered first, rather than a person who is like into the you can say testing or have come up through the testing, because the thought development person can easily handle all the stuff rather than a testing person. So
Exactly.
these are the things like which are currently into the market, and we can't deny them.
Yeah, it is there. It is practically it is there. We are not talking about theory in some book. It is there, at least in the Indian context.
But it's
Mhm.
changing. I think throughout like maybe past few year and currently as well, you will see the packages and the importance of testing in organization. It is changing. There are two kind of cult. I will not say cult. I mean parties, right? One will say okay, developer
Mhm.
can do their testing, right? We don't need testers. And there are also people and organizations which actually have their importance shifted to testing as well from before, right? So testers are getting good pay scale as well. Testers are getting more importance, right? I have seen many organizations which are coming to us just to do their audit, one-time audit, like how we can establish a QA process, how we can establish testing center of excellence. So these are actually happening in market. But yeah, it is still have that problem, right? It's not on the pace that it should be.
Got. Now let's move down to our core topic, which we are here to discuss that part, which is like shift left testing. So first, before diving deep, I wanted to you to explain what is shift left testing and what it means in simple terms for our audience who might be like very new to this concept, or you can start putting your thoughts onto what is shift left testing in a, like very simple terms.
Yeah. So to understand shift left testing, let's understand shift left first, right? So
Mm-hmm.
for any process, right? We will
Right.
go from left to right, right? Start to end.
Mm-hmm.
In software development lifecycle, SDLC or STLC, we also have something in the starting, like from requirement or idea to a
Mm-hmm.
complete product, which is the deployment into production, right? And this is where the shift testing, I mean, the testing comes in place. So where we are placing our testing, or where the tester start their work on, or how tester is fitting in. So maybe previously we start testing only after the development is done in maybe waterfall model. And now you see the testing has been shifted to left of the process, where you
Mm-hmm.
will see a lot of unit testing. is happening, right? So people are more focused unit testing, having 95% of coverage, having included them in pre-commit, right? Maybe check style has been implemented to have good formatting in the code itself so that it will be less vulnerable, right? Having Sonar Cube implemented to some static analysis of your code. So these are shift left in technical perspective or integration perspective of testing. There is also shifting left into ideation of the product as well, right? So suppose idea and complete products. So testers are coming in after the requirement is finalized, development is done. So we will be handed over the requirement and the developed application. Okay, this is the requirement, this is the application. Now prepare test case and start your testing, right? So we don't have much say when we see the gaps in requirement, right? So now we are shifting the involvement of tester to the requirement discussion itself or the discussion of idea itself. So suppose we are discussing that this is how our login page should be, right? And then tester comes in and say, okay, this error message should be like this. It will not look good when it go to production. So this is how we are mitigating the risk in the right phases of the process itself when we are discussing it at the beginning of the life cycle or process, right? So that's how two approaches of shifting left in testing. One is technical and one is the process enhancement itself, right? So we are shifting testing in the process itself. So that's how I understand the shift left, right?
Please said. So, Raneesh, you want to add on something to that, or like your thoughts on to it?
Yeah, you can have rightly have told all the things that is there to shift left testing. Just want to add the main objective of someone who is learning, who is listening to here just 2-3 years experience or you're new to testing. So the idea is that we should do our testing as early as possible. So it is not till the app is developed or website is developed. As soon as maybe you get an idea, okay, this will be a new feature in the site, you can start your testing from there. Or maybe there can be some discussions on the architecture of the product, on the DB schemas, or all those things. So the idea is that testing should be done as early as possible so that you can find bugs as early as possible, because finding bugs early will make them easy to fix and will cost also less. And if you are finding the bugs close to production or all the on the production, then your customers will find them, and so that's not what you want, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
One more thing I want to add here. So, even like it's not more about doing the testing early, it's also more about involving the tester into the process early. Suppose PAs or product managers are working on the requirements, and if testers will be associated with them, there are chances like they can understand the scenarios in more better manner, and they can suggest how to improve that requirement. In a like simple basic example, if there is a functionality to upload something on your website or on your application, the product person don't have that much of idea what can goes wrong and what kind of you can say edge cases it can have. But a tester can hint them there should be some limit for the file, there should be like a limit for a type of the file, so something like if anything goes wrong what kind of message it will give. So that's how, if requirements are like more clear, there are like less chances developer will like take those requirements vaguely and build something on its own, and you are eliminating few bugs before developing it. There can be issues which can be found after the developer will develop it, because he don't know what are the clear requirements or what can be different edge cases related to that requirement. But if you put those, you can say edge cases, starting with the product person, he can refine those requirements and those issues can be easily avoided, rather finding it into the production or finding it into the later stages of development and fixing it again.
So I have a very good story if you guys want to listen to.
Yeah, sure.
Related to this. So yeah, it's an interesting and funny story at the same time. So I'll not name the company because it was something bad that has happened. So there was a product manager that came to us, and I was there in the project, and there was other tester, and that tester was there in the project for more than 2 years. So this is another good thing. If you have testers in your project who have been there for a long time, they understand whole business context, they have the domain, they have all the feature knowledge, even more than the developer, even more than the product manager, right? Even more than the BA. So, but that can only happen when they are a good testers, right? And they have been part of all the decisions that are taken, all the features, all the product that is getting
Right.
built. So, okay, what happened? There was a product manager. So you can different companies call them with this different designation, BAs or just product. So he came to us with a new feature. There was a sprint grooming that was happening, and he told that, okay, this is a feature that we have to develop, and it will be on this page, and this is how it will be going to done. And then we were discussing about all the estimation. So everything was happening, like all the estimation were happened. We'll be delivering it in 2 weeks time. Everything happened, right? At the end, my friend that tested, he told that, okay, this feature is already available in another page. Okay. So, 2 weeks of time when everyone was going to be involved, right?
Right.
So that at that moment he told that this feature is already available on another page, and then engineering manager at that time asked the developer, what is the effort to move it to this page? He said 1 day effort. And how much for testing? 2 days effort. So 2 weeks of time now reduced to 3 days.
Right. Exactly.
So this is shift left, right? This is involving. This is what testers can do when you involve them in the requirement discussion when they have all the business context. And we were all having a quick fun meeting at the end when everyone has everything has happened, and developers were joking, why did you tell, man? We could have enjoyed 2 weeks of time
2 weeks of sprint, right?
because already the feature was there. But yeah, because I saw that guy, I was new in the project, I saw that guy, and that is when I understood, okay, this is the importance of shift left, right? This is how we can save time early.
Right. Definitely. Exactly. So, absolutely, it is something which will save you time, and introducing testers to the early stages, and it gonna help you save in efforts. It will gonna save you in development time. It will help you to save the time to fix your issues. So there are a lot of benefits to it. But I'm curious to know, like, when was the first time you are introduced to shift left testing? You got to know this is something called like shift left testing, and we should embrace it. Raneesh,
Sure.
your experience with it?
Sure. So I was fairly new when I was introduced to this concept. When I say fairly new, just recent, some years back. So I was in my previous company, OLX, and there was really good QA manager, Ravinder Singh. Right now, he's director of technology in Kareem in Dubai. So when he interviewed me, he asked me one question, and I'll also mention it here. So he asked me that, suppose that there are 4 or 5 developers working in your team. They are developing these different features. Okay, you have to do all the testing, all the automation, everything. Is there anything that you can do to make your work easy, or is there any work that you can, shift to developers? So I did not know the concept of shift left. I did not know about anything, right? So I just mentioned that, okay, maybe I'll ask them to verify the P1 flows. Maybe I'll sit with them when they are developing and understand, okay, how they are developing so that I can catch bugs early and things like that. So then he introduced me, while he was interviewing me, he introduced me that there's a concept called shift left testing, and we can include developers so that they can maybe start writing their unit test cases, their integration test cases, contract test cases, and till the feature is baked and it is provided to you, it is already have been gone through different stages so that you don't have to just find these silly bugs. Now you can actually spend your time to find critical bugs. So yeah, just 3 years back, I was introduced with this concept of shift left testing. And although different companies are mentioning they are using shift left, but yeah, I've seen it getting used actually at very less places. But yeah, I am still pretty new to this concept and thinking how I can contribute.
Yeah, that's great. Like, it is very hard to find those technical leaders or thought leaders into testing and in your company. So it's kind of a blessing to have people like them and to guide you to those concepts, because every time you want to learn, but you don't know where should you go, what is the direction you should follow. In testing also, it's a kind of cloud. You can go into like any direction. There are a lot of things you can learn about, tools, you can learn about ideations, fundamentals. So having a mentor or having a leader who know all those stuff and can guide you is kind of blessing. So I think you are very lucky in that case, Raneesh. Okay, so Yogendra, how do you get to know about shift left testing?
Yeah, so I got aware of shift left, I think around 5 to 6 years back. But at that time, it was more around shifting your automated test in the left side of the process,
Okay.
right? Not about the testing and everything, right? Just about automation. So I was aware that if we move that, we had test automation for regression suite, and we were doing it on the staging only. So as soon as
Right.
something is deployed on staging, we were triggering the suite manually, and it will do the regression test and everything, right? But when I got aware that this should be integrated in dev or QA deployment as well. So as soon as something is deployed on QA, it can be triggered. It should be triggered automatically. So we will have a quick feedback like, okay, this many tests have been failed after the recent deployment, right? Just like the sanity and smoke that we do. So automated sanity on QA environment. And one more aspect is API automation and unit test. So previously we were just doing UI automation, and then we move further into left on the development itself. Like when the UI is not complete and we are just doing API automation development. So test those API and automate as much as business use case you can think of on the API level, right? In the test pyramid. So you are moving because we were following waterfall model at that time, right? So we are moving left in the testing in the backend development itself, right? So that was at that time what understanding I had on shift left, right? And then I think 3 year back or 3 to 4 year back, I was introduced in one project where we were establishing a QA process from the scratch. Then I got to understand more basics of the shift left. So having our QA involved in the requirement discussion, storytelling, right? Those kind of agile ceremonies so that QA can also put their points or uh, uh, add some feedbacks on the requirement or stories itself, right? And have those test case ready before development is done so they can give it to developers and product for review, and developers can do their testing on P1 cases, right? So those were the two projects, like one is 5 year back and one is 2 3 year back, right? So that's how my shift left understanding matured.
That's great. And one thing like I want to know about you guys, like now, like from like last 2 3 years, or probably Yogendra is using it from like 4 5 years. So you are using that shift left testing. So I want to know what are the problems it is solving and why industry now have to adopt this shift left testing approach, and how it gonna help them in their testing or in their overall business. You can start with it probably.
Yeah, so I think Anish answered that, right? When he explained his understanding of shift left, right? So the main goal is to find the bugs as earlier as possible. So shift
Right.
left has two prospect, right, or approach. One is cause and consequences, right? So finding causes in the development process as soon as possible. So suppose developers are developing, so we will find problem in their code or in their implementation as soon as possible, so that there will be less consequences, right? When we move right to the process or maybe further down in the um, SDLC process, right? The deployment or the product release, production release or QA release staging release, right? And the second is idea and product completion, right? Having involved QA in the ideation itself, right? So that we will have more edge cases. So as soon as the QA have domain expertise, right? They can give more and more input in the requirement itself, right?
Right.
Because the more you have domain knowledge, maybe I'm working in banking domain for maybe 10 years, right? So I will have more knowledge like what kind of issue we can face further down the line in the product development, right? So I will have more input on the requirement itself. Okay, this requirement is not covering this edge case that can cause an issue, and I have faced that in my past experience. So these are two approaches, right? So that's The reason why the organization or maybe companies need to or trying to apply shift left, right? So that they can reduce the feedback time, right? Feedback time is basically as soon as the developers are done with their deployment, right? And how soon we can give feedback from the testing to them. Okay, these are going haywire, or maybe these are something wrong. These are the bugs that need to be fixed. So reduce that time, feedback time between the development and testing, right? So how we can reduce it? By shifting left the testing itself. So that is the third thing, right? So these three are, I think, the main reason why organization are moving towards shift left to
And with
reduce.
that also, yeah, sorry, you are saying something?
No, I'm
Yeah,
I'm
yes,
just saying,
Raneesh.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
just completing the sentence.
Okay. Yeah. So just want to mention that with these thinking and with this thought of shifting left, these methodologies came into the picture, like test-driven development, right? So the idea that you write your unit test or other kind of test first before even starting the development.
Right.
And when you at first all the test cases fail, then you implement a feature, implement a function, then your test case will start to pass. So these all methodologies came into the picture because of this same shift left thinking. And so different companies may call it by a different name. So they may not be calling, okay, we are shifting left, or maybe we are implementing this or that in our company. But yeah, the idea is that, and to the managers and to the leadership, if you want to catch your bugs early as soon as possible, so you have to shift left. I mean, what is the alternative if you don't do that? So the alternative is that only testing that will happen, it will only happen when the things get developed. And with the fast-paced development that is happening, so I'll just give an example of a sprint, right? Normally, this is what is happening, and you guys can also relate. So normally, what happens is in 2 week sprint or 3 week sprint, there are a set of features that are discussed. Okay, these are the features we are going to do. Then designers will give you the wireframes already. Developers will come into the picture. You will write your test cases. And nowadays, even developer to tester ratio is getting lower and lower, right?
Right.
So what will happen is once a feature is developed, and because developer will take it time, so maybe developer is saying, okay, I'll take 1 week to develop. You will get 2 days to test, right? And then developer can say, okay, no, some more technical challenges came into the picture. Now we are extending it to a day. So now your 2 day can get squeezed into 1 day, and your
Right.
manager can say, okay, we only have this 1 day for testing, and we have this critical deployment that has to be done, right? So, and when the bugs come into the production, that's an interesting discussion. So earlier it used to happen, but that blame game came into the picture, and tester was the first to answer the question why this bug got leaked into production. But nowadays I've seen that this is not no longer there, at least for the companies that I've worked for, it is no longer there. But yeah, the thing that I'm highlighting is the development or the deployment cycles are getting very fast paced. We are having
Shorter and
2 week
shorter.
deployment cycles. It has to be done. The shifting left has to be done.
Right.
It can be discussed with, like who can do it, tester or developer. But yeah, this has to be done and in this fast-paced development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. So, yeah, yes, Yogendra.
Yeah, I'm just adding more to what Raneesh said, right? So it is true, right? So we always have less and less time to test everything, right? So in 2 week sprint, if there is a code freeze, it will mostly be Monday or Tuesday of the second week, right?
Right.
So although it is code freeze, it will be treated as all the development ticket will be moved to QA only after Tuesday, right? They will wait till code freeze, right? So QA time is already squeezed to maybe 2 3 days, right? And they want to release as early as possible. So we want to sign off on every ticket by Thursday. So only 2 weeks, right? If it is a 5 developers and one QA or two QA, you can understand what's the pain point, right? And and even I have seen discussion going on that QA is bottleneck always for the releases, right? Because QA is not giving the sign off, right?
Right.
So QA should give sign off even with the open bugs or whatever we have, right? So Yeah, I really align with what Raneesh said, right? So I have the same feeling.
So on the same thought, Michael Bolton has, because I like to quote him very much, and he mentions very cool thing on this. So the thing where we say that, okay, testing has 2 days, right? So the thing is, whenever we are testing a feature, right, we are raising bugs. So that time developer is also fixing those bugs, right? So it
Right.
is not only the testing time, right? Development is also happening parallelly. So there's no phase per se for testing or stage per se for testing, because
Definitely.
developer has already done his work. Now you have found the work. They are also fixing on parallel. So Michael Walton mentioned that, okay, there's no phase for testing because development is also going in parallel. How can you say there's a phase for testing and testing is a bottleneck?
Right,
Definitely.
right. Absolutely. So if I want to like summarize it in a manner like for our viewers, testing is something like where we give feedback to the developers whether things are working right or in the wrong direction. And that feedback should be as fast as possible, also as early as possible. And shift left is something like which help us to make these things as early as possible. So like these are like very well put thoughts onto shift left testing. Now I want to like move like further into like shift left testing. So what are the like key changes an organization needs which make in their like development pipeline or you can say their testing strategy to successfully implement this shift left testing, how they can start with it, and what are the like phases they can move on to move their testing into these early stages.
Okay,
Anyone? Raneesh?
yeah, I'll just start with it. I'll share one story where like I started my career with a bank-based project, right? And as Yogendra, you also have worked in a bank-based project. You must know that getting accesses to uh, DB or developer's code is a, it's like asking
Not, yeah.
permission to to the company servers.
Yes. A lot
So
of approvals.
and earlier also it was like that, the testers did not have access to even did not I did not have access to know about the DB, or what is happening in DB, where developers are managing their code, how the development is happening, how designers are creating these wireframes, what is happening while requirement discussion. I did not have access to that when I started my career, right? And what used to happen is that the product manager will come, okay, say that these are the wireframes, this is the requirements. Now you start writing your test cases, and then a developer will come and say, okay, hey, our product is ready to be tested. Then we'll take our time for test. This is what I have experienced when I started my career, right? And cut to now, things have moved in positive direction, I must say, for the companies that I worked for at least. I've been involved in discussions with designers when they are provided us with the wireframes. So normally product managers come up with the requirement, then designers will design. If someone new is listening to your podcast, so normally this is what happens. Product manager will come with a requirement. They will ask designers to design a wireframe. It is just a mock-up of what will happen in the screen, how the
Right.
screen will look like for the feature, right? So now when I go to in the discussions, almost always I'll find a use case which designer have not thought of, right?
Right.
So, and I know I'm not blaming the designers for not knowing all the features. I'm just saying because designers nowadays, I'm not sure what happened, because nowadays designers are getting involved into multiple projects at once. So what happens is that they do not have context of one particular module or one particular project, right? And
Yes.
that's when a tester can jump into these discussions and say that, okay, you have developed a screen for this feature, but this feature is also available on other screen. How that will look on the other screen, and what will happen if there is an error? Okay, error case scenarios, other things also. Like from the flow wise, you can ask, okay, this is a new feature getting developed, but there are also other places which can get impacted. How will that flow will look like?
Right.
So at that point, so you can provide your thoughts or your input so that that design can be improved. But if we are not involved at the early stage, if someone with a domain knowledge or the flows knowledge is not involved in the early stage, what happens is normally developers do this thing. When they're developing the feature, then they get stuck. Okay, this thing is not there. This screen is not there. They'll again reach back to the designers. And I'm not saying it will not happen if you include the tester. It will happen, but what I'm trying to say is we can reduce the amount of overworking or reworking that will happen later.
Right.
So from the requirement analysis, discussion with the designers, recently I've been fortunate to be part of a product that was developing from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
So I got involved in the DB schema discussions. So unfortunately, the developers trust me, and I provided an input. Okay, this is schema can why we are creating a table for these attributes. This is already present in other tables, something
Mm-hmm.
similar on the lines. So they were able to inculcate my input, change their tables a bit. Yeah, what I'm saying is that because I was involved in those discussions, I was able to provide my input.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not only that tester can only provide their input on the functional flows, because nowadays we are working with the latest programming languages. We are working with the latest tools, Kubernetes on the clouds, right? We
Mm-hmm.
know all about the whole cycle. We can also provide inputs on these other things. So yeah, this is the way I've seen that we can be involved in the earlier discussions before even the product is getting in a shape. We can ask questions to the product. Okay, what will
Right.
happen in this case? How the user flow will look like if a user, instead of entering an input, will provide
Mm-hmm.
maybe refresh a screen or provide some other things. Because we have to think how things can go wrong, because no one is thinking like that, right? Everyone is thinking, okay, we'll develop a feature and our user will be super happy because we develop this feature. So only we have to think negatively, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
and think how this would break, even if before it is getting developed.
Got it, Raneesh.
Yeah.
So I think you have included like most of the part which is into the ideation thing, or I can say on sort of the functional side, clearing those requirements and adding thoughts to, or you can say tester's perspective to the requirement, and how to like create more scenarios which probably a designer or product person cannot think of. That's one part. I think like Yogendra, what you can do is like put some thoughts towards the automation side, like how we can shift lefts into the automation side. What are the different kind of automation things which needs to be there for an organization, which help them to shift their testing process more close to the development.
So before discussing that, right, I just want to
Mm-hmm.
add to do that, we also need to make one critical change in the thought process itself, that quality should be a responsibility of the whole team. It's not the
Right, right.
responsibility of testers itself, right, or QA team itself.
Mm-hmm.
It should be a responsibility of developer as well, product as well, and QA as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
All three
Mm-hmm.
combined. And that's where the collaboration came in, right? So when we talk about how to shift left on automation part, right? So that's where it came in. So quality is responsible of developer as well. So we will shifting some testing on the developer side as well, right? It can be
Right.
unit test. So creating those
Mm-hmm.
unit test case first. It can be TDD test driven development, or maybe develop some method and write test cases around it which satisfy the requirement, right? So having
Mm-hmm.
those unit test cases covered, right? Adding those unit tests in the pre-commit, right? Having check style check or pattern recognition on the coding side so that we can identify the vulnerabilities. Having those static code analysis tool like Sonar Cloud, Sonar Cube, right?
Mm-hmm.
Running those in the pre-commit or as soon as the PR is going to merge, right? Before the PR merge. So adding those checks there, quality gates, right? So that is one thing regarding the test automation. Second is developers should do one round of testing for the at least the P1 cases that
Mm-hmm.
suppose something is developed to login, at least login is working, right? We are
Right.
not saying that it should not work with the valid, invalid or something, right? Just two cases, it should log in with the valid password, username, password, and it should not log in with invalid username, password. That's it. That two cases should be done at least by the developer itself, so that the feedback time is reduced, right? And again, if we go to the test automation part, so there is, if we go more further in the shift left testing, like core shift left testing, right? So you have seen the as soon as the PR is created, mostly developers work on feature branches, right? So there is one
Mm-hmm.
branch, suppose development branch or QA branch or staging branch, right? Then there is branches based on the feature topics, right? So as soon as a PR is created for those, right? Suppose I have developed some feature for maybe notification in my product, right? So I have worked on that feature, and the code is part of some specific branch. So as soon as the PR is created, there will be a container created, Docker container. This particular code is deployed in that container, right? As soon as it is deployed in that container, my test automation will be triggered to test that particular piece or impacted part, or maybe the whole sanity, right? Or whole
Right.
regression, or if I have created the test automation itself in an sprint, right? That can also run for regression of notification if there is some changes in notification part itself. So that can be done on the PR creation itself. As soon as those tests pass, the PR will be merged automatically. So that is if we do ultimate shift left, right? But that is very hard to achieve. I will be honest, right? So it require collaboration between DevOps, developers, tester, all three teams, right? And it requires infrastructure as well. So that comes with some cost. Further, we discuss on the pipeline itself. As soon as something is deployed, if we are on microservice based architecture, right? We can have different suites for different microservices, or maybe impacted modules of the application, right? As soon as the changes deployed on them, trigger only that particular part of test automation, right? As soon as those automation is triggered, you will have reports and you will have quick feedback. Okay, this is my reports and these many tests are failing. So developers can go and look at that and work accordingly. And then
Right.
we already know the further things, right? Running those sanity checks as soon as it is deployed on QA, as soon as functional testing is done, deployed to staging, automatically running regression, source code regression. But there is one more thing. So I will quote John Bach. He is also a very good tester. So he has published one paper in I think Pacific Northwest test software testing conference, right? In 2024. So he published one paper which is shifting out. So there is some shift right in testing and there is some shift left in testing. So shift left we
Right.
already discussed, right? And shift right
Right.
is the monitoring part that we do, right? So I think Manish might be aware we have done something around that, right? Together in
Exactly.
monitoring. So monitoring is more like finding the bugs before customer can identify them, right? So suppose something goes wrong in the production, we are identified or notified about that as early as possible before it can impact our customer, right? So that is shifting right our testing as well.
Yogendra, are you talking about log analysis or putting on alerts for new relic, those things?
Yeah,
Or the
kind of like
observability part?
Those
it's more
include
about like
those
application
included.
monitoring systems.
Correct. So those included, but these are more around some core check on API side, right? Suppose we are running some API test half hourly or hourly basis, right? P1 cases or sanity checks, doing some sanity checks on UI side as well, that at least login is working, our application is getting loaded correctly on the UI side. That's it. So we are doing it maybe on an hourly basis or 2 hourly basis, right? So that as soon as something goes wrong on the front end, we are notified that something is going wrong in the production, right? So just like the health check we do on the server side, right? So those kind of testing. So first thing, that collaboration should be done correctly between product developers and tester, right? The whole team should be accountable of the qualities, because when they feel accountable, they will do that unit testing and even test case testing, right? More responsibly or honestly. Because sometimes we have seen like developers creating unit test cases just for the coverage purpose, right? Not for the testing their program, right?
Almost
Right.
always.
Yeah,
Almost always.
almost always. Yeah, just to achieve that 95% coverage to merge their
Mm-hmm.
PR. So that's the one critical change, right? Also, think infrastructure is also one challenge, right? We can discuss around it more later. But yeah, I think that's the one critical change that need to be done in the thought process itself.
And because you mentioned that the thing about thought process, so the first thing that comes to a developer mind when you propose that, okay, you should we are shifting our testing left, the first thing that comes to a developer, and I can also understand their pain. What they are thinking from their perspective is that this was your job, right?
Yes.
Testing was your job.
Right.
Why you're putting it onto us? Mm, that's when you need your diplomatic skills or your management skills to convince why do we need this as a process?
So
Yeah.
I will share one story, right? So it was about time. I think I was working for some Indonesian project, right? And we worked on that project from the scratch itself, from the MVP to alpha launch, beta launch, right? So what was happening? Everything was developed, right? We were involved in the requirement discussion, but not much, right? So we were just having that, okay, these are the conference document about requirement, right? And as soon as the things are developed, they deployed it on QA environment. We tested, we create some bugs, right? And reopen those or maybe create bugs, right? So until unless those bugs are resolved, right, they cannot go to production or maybe pre-prod UAT. But even if those are resolved and everything is done, we are still getting some production bugs, right? So we have done some analysis like for 5 to 6 sprint, maybe 2 3 months. So a very good project manager came in, Andrew. So he did that analysis and he found we are not doing any testing on development itself, and the throw and back of the tickets, right? So how many times a ticket is reopened is very high. So developers are not doing anything. They just did their code and assigning it to QA or deploying it to QA environment. And we are reopening that ticket multiple times, right? Suppose first time they developed some notification service and notifications are not even showing. We reopened it, right? Then say, okay, I forgot this flag, and they enabled the flag and move it to QA again. And then we say, okay, it is not showing the recent one. It is showing the oldest one on the top. Then we reopen it again, right? So it is happening multiple time, like 3 to 4 times. Every ticket is being reopened, right? So the accountability go to developer side, that your development is very poor or worse, right? So that's when we introduce the shift left, or maybe introducing testing to developers as well. So what we did, first we introduced testers in the requirement discussion or storytelling itself, right? So testers can create their test cases even before the development is started or before the development is completed, right? So as soon as we have completed our test case, we share those with the developer, and developers are required to complete those test cases or at least pass them on the tool or test management tool, right? To make sure that these test cases are actually tested by them on the dev environment itself, only the P1, right? And it is satisfying the requirement, only then they can move it to QA, right? So the Raneesh said the same thing, right? So the same thing was in their mind before, right? That why we do testing, but when we show them the data, that the development quality is very poor, right? So you need to at least perform this kind of testing on your side to make sure that you are not moving something which is not even working to QA, right? And that's how when we analyze the next 5 to 6 sprint, the bug propagation from lower to high environment was very low. So we were finding around like 50 to 60% bugs on the development environment itself. So there was one more case that developers need to create bugs, right? So after they do dev testing, they need to create bugs and fix those tickets, not just fix code and push it again, right? So we were finding 50 to 60% bugs on the dev environment itself. Then I think 40% around on the QA, and only 10% something, right, on staging or pre-prod, right? Staging testing or regression testing.
I have a
Yeah.
query. Sorry, Yogendra, I'm interrupting
Yeah.
you. I just have a query because you mentioned that developer used to do their testing and they used to raise their bugs. So this is interesting, right? Like, how did you convince them to raise their bugs? Because if I am
Info.
thinking as a developer, I created a feature and I know that after testing, this is not working fine. Why would I create defects to show others that my code had 10 defects? I raised them, then I fixed them.
So that was enforced. Actually, we had a very high note discussion around that, right? So it was the same thing that developers conveyed, but that product manager or project manager convinced them that this is necessary to understand like how much testing you have done, right? Or suppose you have found some bug that required time to be fixed, then you cannot say, okay, this particular development will take that much time, that more time, right? So you can always say, okay, I have seen that this test cases was there. It was not covered in my development. So I'm creating another bug ticket and I will be involving or implementing these kind of checks, right, in further tickets. So that was the one reason. So that's how they agreed. So minor bugs still in the process. We say they need to raise their bugs, but minor fixes they are doing only in the ticket itself, right? They are not raising bugs for issues. But yeah, as soon as something major comes in and they see, okay, this will require maybe two story point or 1 day of effort, they have to raise bug to actually justify their extra work, right?
Yeah, right. So sometimes like what happens, the bugs is not just a thing like you can easily fix it. Sometimes what it evolves to a requirement itself, like the thing like is not implemented even from the scratch, and they need to implement those parts to solve that problem. So that is a kind of new requirement for them. So probably that's why they need to log that part, and they need to take care of that time and those tickets. Because if you say like this ticket will be done in 2 days, and after 2 days of building it you will find something like these things, there are like four more problems which need at least 2 more days to fix them, or you can say to make it work. Then they don't say like now it will take 4 days. They need to file those tickets or the things. Probably we can call them bug, or developers can call them requirement or something, or feature or anything. But at the end,
Definitely.
it need to be like working out with those like feature, and it should be like working out into the QA environment or pre-prod environment.
Yeah, so that's one advantage, right? That
Mm-hmm.
Raneesh also mentioned that getting those requirement gaps as early as possible. So they,
Mm-hmm.
as soon as they execute our test, right, on
Mm-hmm.
dev environment, they get to know, okay, this is the requirement gap that I missed, or this is the requirement that were not mentioned to us, right? And
Right, right.
that can be an edge case.
Yeah, and the worst case anyone can imagine is when we are just 1 day before the production launch and there's a bug, and then we found out that this is not even was in the requirement. That is the
Yes.
Right, right.
worst case that anyone can try to avoid.
So what I think is like even the developer is not tend to do their jobs in bad manners.
Right, exactly.
The issue is they don't have that much of clarity with the requirements.
Yeah. Yes. Sometimes clarity and sometimes even the deadlines are not that much, right? Because already developer work is hard, right? We are also developing as automation frameworks. We know that coding is hard, it takes time, right?
Right.
And now we are saying that okay, you have to test also, you have to find your bugs and fix them also. And so
Right.
it's extra responsibilities that are coming their way,
Mhm.
and their manager is saying, hey man, deadline is close.
So one thing which I push like probably estate people or QA people to learn, if your development or you can say developers to do not have that much of time to put those unit tests, to put those component tests, and you are free for sometimes like the things are into opposite side also. In some scenarios, a feature can be developed in 2 days and it needs around like 4 days of testing. But sometimes a feature which is simple in testing but can be hard to develop, it can take like 5 6 days and development. There the testing team can come in and write those unit tests, or you can say collaborate with developers through write those component tests, give them that support what they need at that time, and it is gonna like help the complete team when they will be like doing the testing or development and all the process.
So this part is interesting where you mentioned that tester can also contribute in the earlier part of test automation. So if we look at the test pyramid, if someone is new to testing, just look at the test pyramid. Even experienced testers do not know about it. So
Mhm.
yeah, look at it. What are the different components? So
Right, right.
when we are talking about writing unit test cases, integration test cases, component or contract test cases, mostly testers are not aware of it. Even I am not fully aware of it. I'll just say it frankly. I've never written a UT, or I've written some tests related to contract
Mhm.
with some mocking. But yeah, I've not written UTs. But earlier I was of the opinion that testers should not be involved in developer testing or UTs and ITs, writing the ITs. But now I'm of the opinion wherever I can provide my value, I can jump in there. Now
Right.
I'm of this opinion. And I've also seen there's a good friend of mine. He was working in Geo, And what they used to do is they used to come in with a framework where they were implementing shift left testing. They will say that, okay, you don't have time for writing UTs, ITs, no, not an issue. We will set up a framework for you and we'll write some sample UTs and ITs for you. And then you can follow along and we'll move on to the different project. So they did the same thing with 4 or 5 projects. And I was greatly amazed how Geo is doing their, test automation or shifting left in this way and how testers are involving in UTs and ITs. Because I've seen it rarely that we as testers are getting involved in directly into the developer's code where we are writing the test cases.
Right.
So yeah, thanks for mentioning it.
Yeah, no, this is the same thing which we are using in our previous work. So what they have is like every developer have a estate, you can say, paired with it, probably like, and that estate will be working with like 2, 3 developers. And whenever like developer have developed their component or you can say their feature, he will explain to that tested person, these are the things, these are the ins and out, and probably he will develop some 2, 3 UTs and at least like 5 to 10% of the coverage through the UTs. Then the estate person will develop those UTs along with like 50, 60% of coverage and then write the component test for that. And you can say he will take care of that component and write those test cases directly into the developer's repo. And later on, developer can use that to run those test cases and to find out whatever he has changes in future sprints, whether it's broken the previous component test or unit test or not. So that's how that estate is helping the development team rather than just working into the testing side.
Yeah, and great to hear it that it is working smoothly for you. Whoever wants to learn about these unit tests or integration tests and component tests and contract tests, they need to understand why the test pyramid is in the shape of pyramid, right? Why there's a triangle? Because the lower level of tests will run too fast and they'll just bring you results without even deployment. So you
Exactly.
don't need deployments for UTs. You do not need deployment for ITs or component tests or the contract tests, right? So contract tests are specifically very useful in the microservices world that you have already mentioned, right? So we need to also know why like people are thinking of shifting left, how these test cases are actually run. I'll just take an example. So suppose there's a field which takes email as an input, right? So what kind of test cases normally people do? Just I'm talking about functional, I'm not talking about security and performance and all those things. On the functional side, and specifically for the error scenarios, normally people will try to enter special characters, only numbers, without at the rate, without a valid email, things like that, right? What I was amazed to know that all these test cases, we do not need to automate at the UI layer. They can be automated in the component test cases within the developer's repo. I did not know that like 2, 3 years back. When I came to know about this, what we did is all these kind of test cases, these are just very minimal, silly test cases, right? These are the top of head test cases. These can be just moved to the earlier part. And then when you come onto the UI part, you can do all the E2E test cases automation because they take time, they need deployment, and deployments are costly. Like you again mentioned that this container logic. You want to add something?
No, I'm just saying like these are the worst cases that we do in UI automation, right? So doing valid login credential, invalid
Invalid
login
logins
credential.
and all
Yeah,
those things.
exactly.
We should not even do it in the UI test automation, right? These are not supposed to be there.
Yeah, and the part where you mentioned that in the pull request. So stop me, Manish, if I go on a different tangent because this part I'm particularly interested about. The part where you mentioned the pull request, again. So there's a pull request that comes, and some companies, some good companies have implemented a pipeline where your unit test cases will run, your ITs will run. There's a deployment happens, like you said, in a container. There's a deployment happens. This is a disposable test environment. This is not a test environment that everyone uses. This is just the environment for that particular pull request that gets up on a Kubernetes cluster or any other cluster. It gets up, all the test cases run. If everything is fine, you will get a green check. Maybe on a GitHub, you will get a green check, or on GitLab or any other pipeline that you are following. Create this disposable test environments. I've seen that it is difficult, right? I've seen it in very few companies where this whole pipeline is developed, where if a developer wants to submit their pull request, it can get tested with all the test cases, at least the HB test cases, right? Not the
Right.
regression suite. A regression can run, like for a count, I can say in my current project, we are running 15,000 cases in regression that runs every day. So we cannot do that on this small disposable environment. So only the HBs, sanity, UTIDs, or other kind of test cases that can get run, and you can get a quick feedback, and then you can merge your PR.
Right.
This pipeline is very rare to find,
Yeah,
and this
it's very
combination.
very rare because it's hard to implement, right? A small organization or
Yes,
project won't
right.
afford those kind of resource costs, right? Because it costs containers. So even if you're using, I mean, Kubernetes or maybe some ECS instance, right? That are being created through Terraform or whatever means, right? Even from GitHub Action, you can do that as well. But it's cost intensive, right?
Yeah, definitely. And that's the part where I think engineering managers come into the picture. They do this cost analysis, whether the value that we are getting is justifying the cost
Right.
and all those things. But yeah, this disposable test environment part, where I was mentioning, so testers normally do not get involved in infra part, and normally this is covered by DevOps and all those people. But yeah, if you are interested in shifting left, you can also jump into understanding the pipelines. And for one project that I've worked for, I have seen a process set up by a German team, and what they used to do is they were managing these test environments. So they were not having the disposable environments, but they were having some 10 environments. They were hosted on GCP. So what used to happen is that whenever a pipeline is there, a pipeline is triggered through a pull request, one environment will be blocked, so others cannot be able to use it. Not a very good implementation, but yeah, at least it was working. So pipeline will be triggered, all the test cases will run. Now, because this environment is not disposable, it will have some data already generated, which may not be useful.
Right.
So all the part where cleanup happens, they were doing the cleanups via some SQL scripts. And all this process was owned by testers. I was amazed to know.
Yeah.
The deployment, pull request, pipelines, cleaning the environment. Because they understood the application and the infra till that part that they owned the infra, the whole process.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
So
So just wanted
definitely,
to
like,
discuss on the infra. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
these
So,
things are there. Yeah. Yes, Sugan.
yeah, I'm just adding to Raneesh, right? So, actually, test environment or QA environment should be owned by testers only.
Right.
So we don't see this practice in most of the companies or organization or projects, right? But it is actually the standard practice, right? That should be done. So QA environment is the responsibility of QA team itself. Is going to be deployed there, right? Even if something is done on development side, we should have control on, like, when we want to deploy from development to QA, right? So that's where this comes in. Like, suppose we are testing something and developers go and deploy something else, some new version of the build, right? And then we think of, okay, how I have tested this thing just a day before and it is broken now. So how we can justify that we can sign off on something?
And then you get into conflict that, okay, I want to test my change, but someone else will say, okay, no, I want to test my change. I want to deploy my change.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Then you get into, yeah, but this disposable test environments, I've seen it very, very rare. But yeah, where it has worked really
Yeah.
in a great
Yeah,
manner.
I think like Docker plays a great role there. So you need to have those containers building from the scratch according to your, you can say, test environment or whatever like you're using into your test automation. It truly helps to like isolate your things and reduce those environmental bugs which comes into like, because your functional team will be using that you can say QA environment and probably the performance part, or sometimes UAT teams are using, and there are lot of, you can say, dump which testing team do, and there is no cleanup for those things. And generally, if we say about like live environment, we see a cleanup once in a like 3 months or 6 months kind of stuff. But when you are doing that test automation, you can control it. If you are running your test cases in a container, you are like pretty much, you can say, control everything inside that container, while it will be like adding those test data, cleaning that up, deleting those things through the SQL, and there can go a lot of stuff when you do into the, like, containerization.
And cleanup for test automation or testing can be turned into a whole podcast.
Right.
This is
Exactly.
so many
There's
ways.
something.
So many
Yeah,
ways it is
amazing.
getting wrong, and so much of data is getting collected, and it only you only focus on it when the environment gets slow.
Right.
Why it is getting slow? DB is having most
Yeah,
of the data. And
Right.
can we clean the data? No,
Right.
our test users are there. Our test data
There.
is there. It's a cleanup strategy.
Exactly.
It can take an hour or more than that to just discuss the cleanup strategy.
I agree with you, Rani. So it's a pretty wide topic. Probably we can cover it someday also.
Yeah, but interesting topic. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, now I think like let's move to our rapid fire round. We have a great discussion over like shift left testing and the potential uses of it and how we can start with shift left testing. And also we have discussed some challenges which comes in with the shift left testing. Now let's start with our rapid fire round. Okay, Yogendra, what's your go-to automation framework?
So go to automation framework, if it is rapid fire, Selenium and Java, that I've been
Okay.
using for quite some time. But I want to add something on that part, right? So mostly
Mhm.
my choice of framework highly depend on the application that I'm testing, right? Or what
Right.
kind of test that I need to automate, right? So if I'm doing some
Mhm.
component testing and it's very lean application, I will go to Cypress. If I don't have much time to set up the framework and it's not an enterprise level application, I will go to Playwright,
Mhm.
right? And if this is something which is very big application,
Context driven.
yeah, so I will go to Java, right? Java or Python,
Got it.
Selenium. So it highly depends actually.
I got your point. Okay. So, Raneesh, what is like most overrated testing trend you have seen?
Chasing the trends.
Changing
So
that FOMO.
Yeah.
yeah, the FOMO or the I mean it's not a challenge only for us testers or developers or
Mhm.
the technical folks. It's a challenge for everyone, right?
Right.
You see Insta profile, everyone is traveling. You want to also travel.
Mhm.
So how would you stop that noise and find your path? It is the most difficult thing anyone can have. Yeah,
Right.
the most overrated trend, if I talk just about testing, I've seen that, and I know that people will not like me for saying it. The movement towards playwright,
Mhm.
I see it as overrated because people first need to learn the basics of setting up automation framework
Mhm.
and then selecting the technology. Because I've seen people who have moved to playwright framework and still using they're mentioning that it provides auto weight and all these things, then still using the hard coded weight in a playwright framework. So
Right. Not focusing on to like test design rather than like how they can automate those stuff.
yeah, how
How
everyone
to use
can,
stuff.
yeah, how to use the latest and coolest stuff. So yeah, chasing the trends is the most overrated one, as we know.
Great. Okay. So, Yogendra, what is the like most challenging domain you have tested for?
Banking and finance, yes.
So definitely, like they have the compliances, and you can say
Everything. Yeah, yeah. QA can, I mean, increase their scope to, I don't know, like infinite verticals of testing, right? Performance, security,
Mhm.
compliance, regulation,
Mhm.
accessibility, everything can be done in banking and finance because it requires everything,
Right,
every
right,
kind of.
right.
The damage a bug can do is huge.
Yeah, so maybe like finance is something, or banking is something where your a single bug can cause a lot of monetary damage to the firm or something like that.
And that's why they don't switch to the latest technology at once, right? They
Right,
wait for
right,
them to get stable. They don't deploy every other day.
Yeah, the
right, right.
least risky component they will try to revamp. Like just
Mhm.
for maybe suppose we are just doing transaction, then they will revamp that. The core they will, I mean, they will just upgrade. So they are using a Java Spring Boot. They will just upgrade it to the latest version. They will not move to Go or something other language. Yeah.
Okay, so last question to Raneesh. What is like your dream company? Probably you have imagined in your college or in the starting of your career to work with.
Yeah, so I would lie if I don't say Microsoft or Google. So for every for every college graduate, they are the dream that okay, if I get to
Mm.
work in these FANG companies, if I can just get in, still there is, but now my thinking has shifted a bit. Now I want to look at the work because even if you go in the brands, there are n number of projects that you can get into. There are n number of type of people that you can get under their management. So yeah, they are right now at the career at the point of career that I'm in. I want to look for more things like
Mhm.
earlier Yogendra also mentioned. But yeah, from college time, yeah, they are the dream.
Good. Okay, guys. So I think like we have covered a lot. So Yogendra, you want to say anything?
Yeah, I'm just saying my dream was to have a 3.2 LPA package. That's it. Any company that can give me that, I will join that.
I think like that's a fair dream at our college time or at our school time because working in an IT company is like still a dream for a lot of guys like uh, probably who are in millennials we can say.
Yeah.
And that 20-30K is still a, you can say a dreamy job to get a like 20-30K salary at
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah.
So it's great, guys. Like, any final thoughts you want to put on for like someone who is starting for shift left testing, or some closing thoughts from Yogendra from your side?
Yes. So what I would say, like when you are trying to move or shifting your testing on left, right? Do it in
Mhm.
phase-wise manner, right? Start with involving QA in the requirement discussion itself. That is the basic fundamental or foundation of shift left, right? And then have those responsibility of quality to be a collaborative one, or maybe for all of the developer QA and the product itself.
Mhm.
So that way we can encourage developers as well to be involved in the testing, right? Um, Second is testers should not be, I mean, have this kind of thought that I will test only on QA environment. They can collaborate with developers to help them in unit testing as well, help them complete their dev testing, right? Just like you mentioned that collaborating with them for
Mhm.
the complex feature, right? So test them on dev environment itself with them, right? So that is a second, and have some technical skill developed on maybe Docker, Kubernetes, or any containerization tech, right? That
Correct.
can also help you to implement shift left in CI/CD.
Mhm. Okay, Ranish,
Yeah,
you
from
want to
my
add
side,
something?
I would say that for any tester who's just starting out or maybe 3-4 years in the testing industry or the career, right? So just want to say that just think at which place I can add value. So you can just start from the requirements till the app is gone to production. Just think how you can add value. Don't just wait for someone to tell you that here is just something that needs to be tested. You find some bugs and then we'll fix it. Just start and try to add value wherever you can.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a wonderful advice. I think like you need to get into the system. You need to think about like what are the different areas. But that's why in the starting I have said like tester have more wide job. He will be working as a developer. He will be working as a DevOps person. He will be thinking something similar to like what a product person thinks. So it have all inclusive of all the roles, and you need to pitch in to other folks anytime you get time and helping the other teams or like thinking about them doing their stuff and making the, you can say, product more robust and process also more robust.
Yeah, so now we don't just have full stack developer.
Mhm.
We have jobs like full stack tester as well.
Yeah,
A single tester doing
right.
everything.
And it's more about like full stack IT team.
Full stack, yeah,
Tester is someone like who do all the jobs.
yeah.
Right. So thank you guys. It's been nice to host you, and we had a like wonderful discussions over here on shift left testing. Thanks getting some time onto the new year, and wish you a happy new year, guys.
Yeah, I
Happy New Year
mean,
and thanks again
happy New
for
Year, and
inviting me.
yep, thank you for having us. And I think it's a great start of New Year, right? Having those
Yeah.
discussion, having those new idea came in from you and I think Raneesh as
Mhm.
well, right? So I think it's a good start.
Hey guys.